opportunities that are available. But for this session, we are very lucky to have our friends from the risk team here in Human Resources. They partnered with us a few times last year for Lunch and Learns, and they're back again. So I'm thrilled that they're with us. And I'm going to turn it over to Beth to do some introductions, and they'll kick us off. Thanks, Beth.
All right, great. Thanks, Christy. So hello, everyone. I am Beth Olson, Employee Leave Benefits Manager on our risk management team. And with me today are Jody Kuma, our Employee Leave Benefits Specialist. So she and I work together with the bulk of the leave work, answering most questions, taking care of situations that people have. And then we have Sarah Kroll, our Risk Management Division Leader. So she may be available if Jody and I are unavailable or in a pinch, or she has access to that information as well. So you may get one of the three of us when you have those leave questions coming in. So first, we want to thank you for joining us today for the newest in our Lunch and Learn series. We're kind of excited to close this loop. We've done the other three, and this is one of the four that we'd like to repeat ongoing over the years. So last year, we held 3 separate presentations on different leave benefits we're going to be talking about today. So we had a whole presentation on just pieces of this. Today, we are looking at putting together FMLA, ADA, workers' compensation, and more leave benefit options to see how they fit together to support you when life happens. So this session is meant to just give you confidence, not a detail overload. You'll leave having an idea of the different benefit options available and where do we go for help. Oops, so my slide jumped ahead of me. So most of us don't necessarily think much about leave benefits until we need them. And then that's usually when something stressful or unexpected is going on. So our team is here to guide you through the process. We know that leave benefits can feel complicated and intimidating, but they're designed to really support employees during life's tougher moments. We also know that it's nerve-wracking when a long-term illness or a serious injury happens. Even happy events, like adding a new family member, add new stresses to the employee and their family. These things bring uncertainty, and that's unsettling for most people. So you're probably wondering, what's going to happen to my family, my job, my pay? What if I can't come back to work? How is the work going to get done without me? Or if you're like me, what am I going to come back to when I return from leave? Whether it's for your own health, to care for a family member, or to recover from an injury, these programs exist to give you stability and support when life gets unpredictable. Understanding the benefits available to you and knowing a little bit about the process and how it works can help make those what ifs a little bit less scary. Right, Jody?
Absolutely. And that is our goal for you today. We want to clear up the confusion about leave benefits related to medical situations and share the process that are available to take care of you, our employees. Let's take a quick look at our agenda for today. We're going to start off with the big picture of the leave options and benefits available to you. Then we'll look at how the pieces work together. And lastly, we're going to finish up with how our team, Risk Management, supports you through this process. Now, before we dive in, we want to hear from you. Why do you think it's important for employees to understand their leave options? Please drop your responses within the chat. And don't be shy.
I don't know if we have a shy group. Not that I've met so far anyway. So I guess my question or thought on this was kind of like, why is everyone joining us today? What are you hoping to learn? Why is this important? It was important enough for you to take your lunch hour, so I appreciate that. And everybody is quiet. Oh, there we go.
Oh, thank you, Jodine. Yes, to know their rights. Great. Be informed. Absolutely.
Get benefits Yeah, get benefits available to them. I do know that I've had conversations with employees who had no idea about some of these or that they were available.
Yeah.
Which is
Mandy,
why we
yeah.
do these lunch and learns.
So many options and you don't know what you don't know. That is a great. The city offers so many benefits and county and the rules and contracts. These are great answers. Maximize use of benefits. Thank you, RJ. And sometimes unexpectedly, very true.
And
Right.
yes, supporting your team, that was a good one as well, just to provide that support in situations where, again, as it was stated earlier, it might not be the most fun time in your life when you're going through something that you may need to utilize one of these benefits for.
I've had multiple employees say, oh, well, I was talking to a coworker who suggested I reach out to you. So, some of these things might not benefit you personally. It might be that you recognize a coworker might have a qualifying situation. So, all right, Jody, should we keep going?
Yes, thanks everyone.
So understanding our options can help us advocate for ourselves like we talked about and reduce stress. We all need that, right? So let's take a look at the big picture. The key message here is that it is not your job to know every policy detail or decide which program applies with these leave options. That's what we're here for.
Leave programs aren't just about the rules, they're about the care and stability. They give employees time to focus on health and family while protecting jobs and benefits. They also help the organization stay compliant, consistent, and supportive of its people. When people know how to access leave appropriately, it supports both our personal well-being and the workplace continuity. So let's make sense of the big picture and see how different types of leave fit together. Beth, on to you.
Well, we are going to start with the leave options that we deal with a lot. These are kind of the main ones. These programs serve different purposes, but they often overlap. They are Workers' Compensation, Family Medical Leave Act, or FMLA as it's commonly known, or the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. I know there are a lot of employees that think I don't have a disability, so the ADA doesn't apply to me. But we're going to give you some information today. So, for example, someone might start on workers' compensation for a work injury, use FMLA for job protection, and then move into an ADA accommodation while they are returning to work. Most of what we talk about today reflects options available to employees that work for more than 30 hours, for employees who work more than 30 hours a week. But we will point out if something is available to other employee types like seasonal, temporary, part-time, or on-call as applicable. Feel free to reach out to our team later if you have a specific situation you'd like to chat about. We have had FMLA apply for some of our part-time or seasonal on-call employees. So let's start with workers' compensation.
And if at any time you have questions during the presentation, pop them in the chat because I'm going to monitor and make sure that they're answered.
Yep. So workers' compensation provides benefits if you are injured or become ill because of your job. So when a leave situation comes to our attention, this is one of the first questions that we check. Is it related to a work injury?
It also covers medical treatment, partial wage replacement, and support for a returning back to work. All employees, including our seasonal and temporary employees, are eligible for workers' compensation with the goal of returning safely to work as soon as possible. When employees are out with workers' comp, they may receive 2/3 of their pay based on a 26-week wage average. But guess what, folks? Both the city and county offer an additional benefit, otherwise known as injury leave. Injury leave is a bargained benefit, and the details vary from contract to contract. But the goal of injury leave is for employees to receive their regular pay during the initial recovery period from a work injury. That's pretty awesome, isn't it?
That is pretty awesome. Now, any workplace injury should be reported right away because early reporting really helps with claims and a safety follow-up. So let's talk about that for a minute. There are three main options when you submit a work injury. The first one is report only. This is when the employee has an injury or illness. It might get better, so they don't really think they need treatment right now. They're just going to see if it heals on its own, and they're not missing any work time. The second option is medical only. This is appropriate if the employee goes in for treatment, but they are immediately released to return to work, so they miss less than 7 days of work, maybe stitches, and then everything is good, or they just go in and are immediately released. The case turns into major medical or lost time in cases of overnight hospitalization, for example, or if they're expected to miss more than 7 days of work for recovery, if there's regular therapy, regular visits. Cases can shift. So if you start with a report only and then you decide you need treatment, for example, but if the situation changes or worsens, the case type can be changed. It's critical that employees and departments let risk know right away when that status changes. This gives us a chance to make sure the case is handled appropriately. So this gave you some highlights about workers' comp. We're going to go into more detail on this at one of our presentations later in the year. If you attended it last year, we're going to do that again. So be sure to watch for that registration. I think that's around October. Now, sometimes workers' compensation and the Family Medical Leave Act, or FMLA, overlap. Jody, can you talk about FMLA?
Absolutely. Thank you, Beth. FMLA provides up to 12 weeks of unpaid job protected leave for certain family and medical reasons. While FMLA is unpaid, your benefits will continue. For those with a work injury, work comp would cover your medical care, while FMLA would protect your job. You can use FMLA for your own health condition, to care for a family member. There are certain military caregiver options or to welcome a new child. Please reach out to us.
And I'd like to note here that your benefits continue at the same rate that you're currently paying on your paycheck. So sometimes we have that question that comes in to our department.
Okay, we have a question. Can you think of a life event where FMLA might come into play? Please drop your responses within the chat.
That just seemed like a good place to drop that in. Sometimes
Surgery?
you guys have
Yeah.
questions about when, what, if you're going to have to pay the full health insurance premium or just your share. So
Sick family member, yes. Both great examples. Personal
injury.
Thank
Right.
you.
Yep, you guys got some good ideas. So the eligibility requirements for FMLA can be a little bit tricky. In order to be eligible for FMLA, employees must work for the same covered employee for at least 12 months or the last year. They must have physically worked a minimum of 1,250 hours in the past 12 months. This does not include vacation or sick. It has to be physically worked. And note that this could include some of our part-time, temporary, on-call, or seasonal employees, depending on their schedules. Employees must also work at a location where the employer has at least 50 employees within 75 miles, which we don't generally focus on because both the city and county easily meet this.
Sometimes medical situations require taking leave all at once, or other times within smaller blocks, which otherwise known as intermittent leave. Intermittent leave needs to be coordinated with your department to help minimize the disruptions from the workplace. That might mean, hey, scheduling your physical therapy at the beginning of the shift or the end of your shift, or if you're having a bunch of appointments, is grouping them on this all on the same day when office coverage is available, or just recognizing that sometimes flare-ups that we might be experiencing just can't be planned. The key here is communication. Working with your department helps everyone prepare and keep things running smoothly while you're away. Even though FMLA itself provides the unpaid job protected leave, employees use their available leave banks for pay during that time. Now, if you're familiar with leave without pay or absent without pay, we use them as placeholders when no paid leave is available. We often refer to those or these as LWAP or AWAP because we sure do like our acronyms. But Beth, how do these leaves work with FMLA?
Well, some of you may have seen this before. We like to use the example of leave as an ice cream sundae, as shown here. If you think of each leave type as a flavor of ice cream, and then we pretend there's a bunch of vanilla, which we'll refer to as LWAP or AWAP underneath, you would need to eat through all of those other fun flavors or your personal leave banks, sick, personal convenience, holidays, vacation, paid parental leave, before you get to that vanilla LWAP, AWAP. The 12 weeks of FMLA are then represented as the sprinkles, which go along with each bite and flavor of ice cream until they're gone. Even though department head approval is typically required with LWAP and AWAP, that's not true with FMLA because those hours are now protected. Even so, some department heads still like to be aware when employees are using unpaid hours. If you'd like to learn more about FMLA, make sure to register for our April Lunch and Learn. So that's coming up as well. And now we have covered 2 of our big 3. But wait, I know we're focusing on the big 3, but we do have some birth and bonding situations that we want to mention here because they kind of connect to FMLA. The first one we bring up is paid parental leave, or PPL. Some of you may have already used it, or some like me wish we would have had this option. My youngest turns 11 in a couple of weeks, and this would have been really nice, 11 years ago.
I agree. My youngest is turning 18, and boy, this is such a good benefit for our current working family members. PPL is such a great benefit, and it became into play on January 1st of 2023 for the city and county. This is a negotiated benefit available to many employees, and it provides 6 weeks of pay for 3 events. It starts with the initial date of a new family member added through birth, foster care, or adoption. This is one of the scenarios we'll walk through more thoroughly in the April session that Beth mentioned previously. PPL works with FMLA as available. For example, an employee in their first year of work would qualify for PPL, but not FMLA, because, as a reminder on the previous slide, employees must meet that 1 year of employment to have FMLA eligibility. In most cases, PPL is used with FMLA for the first 6 weeks. Once the child enters the family, then the other leave banks may be used for the time taken up to the first anniversary.
I know some of you are familiar with PPL, but I wanted to just add here that we've had some employees try to take PPL because I have kids and my kid had to go to the doctor. Paid parental leave is for that new family addition and not just because someone has kids. We've also had employees who had babies and forgot to reach out to let us know. So we do need a request and we do need to know when someone has a PPL qualifying event. So our next birth and bonding one that we want to talk about is protected family leave, or PFL. And when we start throwing acronyms, I know it can confuse people. So PFL is when a couple works for the same employer, they get to share the 12 weeks of FMLA leave together for birth and bonding under the FMLA law. With protected family leave in the picture, each parent is now able to use up to the 12 weeks of leave instead of having to share it through a combination of FMLA and PFL. FMLA must be used by the couple first before the protected family leave kicks in. Birth and bonding leave options end as soon as they're used or by the first anniversary as of the date of the addition to the family. Jody, would you talk about our last add-on for birth and bonding?
Sure. The Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, otherwise another fun acronym, PWFA, relates specifically to pregnancy and childbirth. This is a fairly new federal law that provides protections for employees who are pregnant or have recently given birth. Under the PWFA, temporary accommodations can be made to help employees continue working during or after pregnancy. That could include things like modified duties, implementing extra breaks within the workday, adjustments to their work schedule, or in some cases, additional leave time for those who may be diagnosed with a high-risk pregnancy. The PWFA may also apply to nursing needs. Here in Nebraska, the Nebraska PUMP Act further outlines the requirements for providing appropriate spaces and time for nursing mothers at work. Together, these laws ensure that employees have the flexibility and support they need throughout their pregnancy and their transition back to the workplace. Okay, folks, now we've reviewed workers' compensation and FMLA, including the addition of our new family members. At this point, you might be asking yourself, what happens if I use all of my FMLA hours and I still need more time?
Well, we have a solution for that too. If your situation is not workers' compensation leave and FMLA is not available, you are able to return to work with some modifications, then we look at our third big one, the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. So the ADA is a law which prohibits discrimination in various areas of public life, which includes employment. It's about finding solutions that help employees perform the essential functions of their job. We review restrictions or requests for accommodation that might mean equipment changes, modified duties, flexible schedules. Sometimes additional leave could be an accommodation. So maybe the job requires lifting 50 pounds, but the employee is only allowed to lift 20 during a recovery period. Or the employee is unable to use their arm for a couple of weeks. A hearing or sight device could be required. Maybe remote work is temporarily requested as medically necessary. We also evaluate religious accommodations. So all of these options would fall under the ADA. Our team focuses on the employment aspect, but as a government entity, many of you may work in a department which also has some applications to the ADA in different ways, not just for employees, but for the public too. We've got another interactive where we'd like you to drop a quick note in the chat of how does your department work or connect with the ADA? There's a couple that I think of is LTU with streets and crosswalks, sidewalks. I know Parks and Rec when they're with playground equipment and access to parks. So how about you guys? Are you aware? Thanks, Marianne. Appreciate you. Library, sensory story times. Yep.
Oh, very
That's an
nice.
option. But that's awesome. I might have to come join one of those. That sounds kind of fun. Maybe you guys could do a presentation on that. I don't know if sensory would be the same through the or through the chat, but that'd be kind of fun. Oh, applicant accommodations. We have, I know, New Americans with some translation things when people come in to talk, just accessing our public buildings, making sure people can get in and out and get to the departments that they need to meet with staff. That's kind of all of us. All right. So we've got a few options, but as a government organization, it's our responsibility to make sure that everyone we serve can access our services, whether that means physical access or clear, effective communication.
Let's talk about how the ADA process begins. And it begins when an employee provides notice of a need for an accommodation. That notice could come through a conversation with the supervisor or through medical documentation that includes work restrictions after an illness or having surgery. Requests must come from the employee, or the employee must be a willing participant if someone would submit the request on their behalf. Please note, once a supervisor becomes aware of a potential accommodation that is needed, please contact RISC as soon as possible. As mentioned earlier, reasonable accommodations help employees meet the essential functions of their job. Without an approved accommodation, the situation could move into a performance issue, which we are trying to avoid. Accommodations are applied moving forward and they are not retroactively. Temporary accommodations are typically approximately limited to about 6 months. Here is a few key takeaways about the ADA process.
It didn't go. There we go. Reasonableness matters. So not every request must be approved as it's originally written, but every request must be considered in good faith.
The feasibility varies. What's reasonable for one role might not be possible for another, depending on the job duties, resources, and/or just the vastness within our departments.
Consistency counts, people. If similarly situated employees have received an accommodation, it's generally going to be considered reasonable for others in similar situations.
Individual evaluation is required. A simple, hey, we don't do accommodations policy is not compliant. Each situation must be reviewed individually. So please reach out to us.
I've had that conversation with a couple of supervisors. Funding is centralized. So while departments manage their daily operations and budget, when we're looking at accommodations, funding is going to be looked at for the entire employer. So it's going to be looked at for the city or the county budget level and not necessarily individual departments. I've also had that discussion a couple of times when we were looking at having to maybe purchase equipment. Reasonableness is very different if you're looking at a department budget versus the county budget, for example.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground so far. We have a quick poll question for you before we go any further.
Okay, so thanks, Jody. The question, and I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll so you can see it. The question is, which of these situations do you think most often leads employees to use one of our leave programs? So you should see the poll in front of you now. You'll be able to select one answer and then click submit. So everybody, if you'll go ahead and see what you think.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. Medical.
Oh, now we're starting to split out a little. We got some more votes coming in. That's good.
Yeah. New family members. Yes.
Nobody's doing the adjusting job duties during pregnancy. Apparently that is not considered to be one of our big ones.
Right. So recovering from a personal health condition or injury is the one that's getting, oh, look at that. It's it's changing. A few more responses coming in. But you can go ahead and close that poll if you have already responded. Thank you, everyone.
Yep, thanks everyone. You can probably see why we spend most of our time on the big three from what we've just covered. But when we're talking about employee leave, there is just a little bit more that we get to think about.
Of course there is. And I guess you're all fairly familiar with these listed leaves options as they are quite pretty common to most employers. Aside from military leave, which you don't always see. Well, leave like vacation or this taking a couple of sick days can be used on their own. Several leave banks wear multiple hats and work concurrently with the big three that we have been speaking about. Available personal leave banks must be used before using LWOP and AWOP, even when working with the big three, with just a few exceptions. The first one is specially designated leaves, such as the military leave and the paid parental leave, can be used when employees have personal leave balances. The other time when personal leave balances would not have to be used first is with workers' compensation. Employees may have an option to supplement their personal leave banks to make sure they have adequate paid status for holidays or to cover their benefit costs.
That's right. So leave management is a delicate balance between the employee's needs and operational requirements. Departments work with employees to manage leave for consistency, necessity, because you need the time off, and fairness. Not everybody can be off at once. There are frequently slight variations in leave details because departments are all operationally different. Planned vacations or unprotected absences are employer benefits and subject to department approval. There's a chance they could potentially be denied or receive disciplinary action. However, absences approved through FMLA or ADA are federal entitlements, and as such, they're protected by law. As much as people worry about separation, that only occurs after all of the other options have been exhausted, and an employee is usually going to have to be off work for 6 months or more if that's going to come up, and there's no reasonable option of them returning to work. So guidelines are in place because at some point the department and the team need closure and to have a person in the position to complete the team and the work. Separation is not the result in most cases that we deal with. We often share information about the catastrophic leave program with employees. It's common practice to discuss the option to apply for other positions within the city or county when indications are that a person is medically unable to return to their previous position. Short-term disability may be purchased through Allstate, and I think I just heard this morning or talked to Hannah this morning that that has changed to Nationwide, or there was another name now. So you may not hear the words Allstate anymore, but it's the same kind of idea, and it's still available. Long-term disability is then paid by the city after a 120-day waiting period and a 180-day waiting period for the county, so 4 months and 6 months. Now, just remember, the vast majority of medical leave situations return to work and life goes on. So looking at these slides, the last two that we've just covered, the city and county really do provide a generous array of leave options to meet employees' needs. It's pretty cool. So thank you all for sticking with us so far. We know this can be a lot of information. So what we'd like to do now is we'd like to bring it all together. Now that we've looked at each of these programs kind of individually and we've done a review, let's take a step back and see how this works in real life. Each leave and accommodation program serves a different purpose. And you know, a lot of rules always have someone's name on them because something happened. So some of these programs are employer benefits and others are the law. They often overlap, and that's okay. In fact, it's pretty common. The important thing is to understand when to reach out and who can help coordinate when you do.
Let's look at a simple example. Imagine an employee who experiences a back injury while lifting equipment at their job site. Because the injury happened on the job, workers' compensation kicks in to cover the medical treatment and part of their wages. At the same time, the employee might also qualify for FMLA, which provides the job protection while they're away recovering from their work injury. Then, when the employee is ready to return to work, and they might still have some lifting restrictions that their medical provider assigned to them, that's when an ADA may come into play, allowing for accommodations such as modified duties or the limited lifting. Just remember, injuries that happen outside of work would also potentially qualify for FMLA and ADA provisions.
Yep, it'd be pretty close to this work comp situation, just without the work comp injury piece.
Okay, so we have one more poll. How often do you think multiple programs overlap? So we just want your opinion on this. Weigh in. What do you think? Often, occasionally, almost never, or maybe you're just not sure. What do you think?
Can I vote? I'm not sure.
Let's hope not.
Wonder.
All right,
Oh.
so looks like people are thinking pretty often. What do you say, team?
We have a smart group this afternoon.
I think they're right.
Yeah, so 69% often. Once you've answered that poll, please go ahead and close it if it's still showing up for you. I think we should all be able to see it in chat.
Thank you.
So often is the correct answer. We often have multiple different leave types of situations in the Venn diagram of leave that are going on all at one time. So very, very common.
And that's where it's nice to have the team that I have, because we can bounce those situations off of each other as well and run through, okay, so this and this and this, and what about this? And oh yeah, this, and then this. It's very helpful to have a good team.
Yes. Knowing the basic helps you understand when to reach out and to see what other options apply to the situation. So let's try one together.
So let's say that an 8 months pregnant employee tells their supervisor they're having pregnancy-related complications, and their doctor recommends light duty. Now let's say they go into labor early and deliver the next week. Which programs might apply in this situation? You got it, mark it in chat. Let's see what everybody says, if they remember our acronym alphabet soup. I think every industry kind of has their own alphabet soup. I know I worked for a nonprofit and we had our own language. ADA, paid parental leave. Any other ones you think might apply? Okay, FMLA, ADA, PPL, yep. All right. You guys know, good. Keep putting those in. So actually, when the pregnant employee is needing modifications, that now falls under the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, the PWFA, and it is no longer, so it's just a little bit stronger protections for pregnancy than the ADA offers. So we look more to that than we do the ADA anymore. And then let's say she goes into labor and has labor for 2 days before the baby's born. Those would be FMLA with personal leave banks. Once there's a baby, then we go to paid parental leave. And both of those at the FMLA would cover the personal leave banks and the paid parental leave. And then when returning to work, there could be some potential accommodations under the PWFA. And we learned just a little bit ago, if the spouse works for the same employer, then we could include protected family leave. So you can see in this situation, it can get, a simple pregnancy can have a lot of programs that overlap. And so we really do work to help coordinate the best approach for the employees.
And I had put in the chat earlier that I don't know if you caught it, but I do want to put in a plug. We do have 2 nursing rooms here in HR that are near our front desk that's open for anyone to come and use at any time. Even if our front door is closed and you have a badge, the badge should let you in to get you into those rooms. It has a refrigerator in it for you to store milk. It has a lock on it. So those rooms are new and they're pretty nice. And so come check them out, come utilize them. That's what they're here for.
And we've had people use them and they have really comfy chairs. Sometimes there's little snacks too. All right. Let's go. Okay, so as another example, let's say a couple is adopting a newborn and both the employees work for the city. So they were notified of the placement of the new baby and they submitted their request for PPL and FMLA. The employees qualified for 12 weeks of FMLA together and then 6 weeks of PPL each, which provides the job protection while they're off work for bonding. So then after the 6 weeks, they were unable to find daycare. So one employee decided to come back to work. The other, they decided to have them use personal leave banks for an additional 3 weeks. Those 3 weeks would now be protected under the protected family leave because all 12 weeks of FMLA has been used up. So one of the key things is when you think about these programs, they're like puzzle pieces. Each serves its own purpose, but together they form a complete picture of how we support employees when life happens. Okay, so as you've seen, there are multiple paths that can be taken depending on the employee's situation. The good thing is that you don't need to be an expert. You just need to know where to start.
And that is with risk management. By streamlining the process within the human resource risk management, it has helped with providing that consistency and the fairness across the city and county. In addition, we are able to capture data for reporting purposes to governing bodies such as the mayor, the county board, the city council, along with our law partners, or just providing reports to the departments. One of the biggest things we help with is making sure departments are compliant with following the details under each law. We also started using the Origami system in 2025 last year, which is our case management system. And we can already see the support it has provided to the departments and employees while they're out on leave. And it just makes sense to let each department to shine in their area of expertise. And whether you're the police department, engineering, LTU, and just let us help with the leave management details that you might not see on a daily basis.
It's our job. It's what we do. There are three primary ways to notify risk management when you think that you or an employee might have a qualifying leave or workers' comp event. So our preferred option is the claims management link. It simply replaces the paper forms that used to be required. We are moving into technology and getting more efficient. So moving to electronic requesting. When you are logged into a work computer, the system is set up to pull information from Oracle. We're trying to help make it easier for you too, so it streamlines the data entry. You don't have to enter your date of birth, your supervisor's name, your department. Anything we can pull out of Oracle is going to load right into the system for us. Replies to emails and all of your information then stay in one place, which, as I mentioned earlier, either Sarah or Jody or I could be responding based on, kind of our workload, and that helps us serve you better when we have everything together and can review those notes. While a request may need to be submitted for another employee on occasion, someone's in the ICU or is unable to complete the request because they're maybe having emergency treatment, and we'll follow up accordingly as we need to. The best practice is to have the request directly from the employee. There are some things that they need to be aware of or to sign off on through that request. We also ask for employees' personal emails and phone number. It helps make communication easier while they're on leave. They may or may not have access to their work email, or maybe they're not cleared to work while they're on leave, so they shouldn't be checking their work email. A second option is to reach out to risk@lincoln.ne.gov, where we will help start the process, which includes number one, submitting that request on our link. Everything is running through that system, so we can just keep on our follow-ups and our timelines. Sarah, do you want to talk about this one?
For the hotline?
Yep.
Sure. So the 24/7 hotline was something that we just implemented with Corvell. It provides 24/7 care. It's another way for you to submit a claim. So you may also use the submission link, but you don't have to do both. You can do one or the other. So if it's after hours, that's really nice for our folks who work in other departments. And we know that we have a lot of 24/7 services that we provide, and accidents don't always happen Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, right? So if you are curious about, maybe you, again, like cut your finger and you're like, I don't know if I should go get stitches or if I should leave it, you can call the hotline and the nurse will give you information about how to treat that. They'll give you recommendations on what to do for treatment, things of that nature. So you'll be speaking with someone right away. And that will get your claim initiated and started, and we will get notified of that once that claim is submitted through that 1-800 number. We will also get that to your supervisor. Now, it is not an excuse for you to not let your supervisor know. You still need to let your supervisor know. But it is just another option for you to utilize to submit that work comp claim.
Yeah, and we are working on getting communication out right now. We also wanted to note that, and Ben will get to your questions, so hang on. Privacy and confidentiality are important to us. We're all aware, we're trained professionals, we understand. So one of us will reach out to follow up with support from the other team members as needed. We generally are not discussing diagnosis or specific treatment. The information we really need is, when can you come back to work? How long will you be off? And if there's any accommodations or adjustments that we as the employer need to make. So Ben, to answer your question, my next thing is let's show you where you can find the link to Origami. If you go to the intranet page, or if you go to the intranet and you search for human resources, you should land on this HR page. Then you'll have to select the city or county, which is at the bottom of that first picture. There's a couple of different options. They all go to the same link. So one of those is time off. And then under the time off, you can see the catastrophic donation, paid parental, FMLA. The link is right under that. The other option is to go through forms and policies, human resource forms. And then there's two options, the injury forms or the accommodation. And you can see the link for those as well. When you select any of those links, it will bring you to this page, which you can see you either are selecting FMLA. So we put these in different categories of similarities. So your FMLA PPL military requests are in one, the ADA or accommodation are in another, and then the work injury report. And we've had several employees using this. It seems to be working fairly well. I'd also like to note, we talked about these previous lunch and learns we've done, or we're recording this session. If you're interested in viewing those, you would go to that same internet, the HR internet page, city or county, select a city or county, and then under learning, you can see the HR insights and all of these recordings. If you wanted to watch them over a lunch break or share it with a coworker, you can do that.
And even if you're unsure about which one to choose, because we have talked about how these overlap a lot of the time, go with your main one. We'll make sure the other ones get covered. We'll make sure that you get coverage for the other ones if they do need to overlap. So if it's a work-related injury, you choose that one first and foremost. And we'll make sure that the FMLA and ADA, the accommodations get applied if those come into play.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, Jody, I think we had one more thing to review.
I do. Thank you, Beth. Let's take a look at some of the most common questions about the programs that we have spoken about this afternoon. The first question is, why do I have to use FMLA if I have personal leave banks available, or I have a work injury? Why do I have to do this FMLA stuff? Well, folks, if it has not already been made clear, FMLA is a protected leave and is a federal entitlement. Once we, as the employer, this means supervisor, department, and along with our human resources, are notified of a potentially qualifying event, then we are obligated to evaluate and make sure it is designated appropriately. We don't get to pick and choose when we want to use FMLA, and whether it applies or does not apply is by the law.
And it's not a bank of leave. So that's one of the misconceptions that we clear up quite frequently. It's not a leave bank like a sick leave or a vacation. It just, again, is those sprinkles that add a layer of protection that goes on the top.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, the next question is, well, who decides if something qualifies? Well, the answer is typically human resources, and medical certification often helps determines the eligibility regarding the programs and the protection. All right, another question that comes up is, what if I'm not ready to come back after FMLA? Well, in addition to covering adjustments to your work tasks, the ADA may allow additional leave accommodations. Then we often get asked, what should managers do if an employee mentions a health issue? Please contact risk. Please reach out and do not try to diagnose or decide which leave may apply. And then finally, what if more than one type of leave applies? If you have not already learned, we track and coordinate so employees' rights are applied and we can avoid the violations and ensure that the appropriate leave protections are applied appropriately for the situations.
All right.
Thank
That's
you.
okay.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, sorry. That's
so
what
our final thought, we're getting short on time. So our final thought we really just wanted to leave you with today, if you haven't gotten that message, is contact us. You know, if an employee has a surgery, is recommending medical, their absences are starting to be more than normal, if you're in the middle of a case or have an employee in a case and timelines seem like they're taking longer or something's not right, reach out. We want to make sure employees get the right benefits. We're on the right track. And as you can all probably relate, the sooner we know about those things, it's much easier to go than it is to try to catch up and figure out where things should have been. So we want to thank you for joining us today. Hope to see you for our next one, and we'll open up to questions and turn it over to Christy to finish us up.
Yes, thank you. If you want to go ahead and move on to the next slide, I'll do a little plug for for the upcoming lunch and learns. And meanwhile, please go ahead and enter any questions that you have in chat. I am putting in a link to our professional development brochure or catalog that gives you a list of these and others that we have going on. But what I definitely want to tell you about is in February 4th, we're starting a new series this year with the One Lincoln group that is part, it has a number of employees from the city as part of this group. And we'll be hearing from community partners that support sometimes underrepresented groups throughout the community. So I would encourage you and really hope to see you at our One Lincoln Voices quarterly lunch and learns. Again, the first one is February 4th. That will be with the NAACP Lincoln Youth Council. And we'll have 3 more throughout the year as well. You'll find those in the catalog. HR Insights, our next one will be Making Sense of Medicare. So that'll be a good one to register for. Danny Fisher has wellness webinars, and so you maybe attended one with her last week. We also have Healthy Habits Start Today coming up February 12th. And then Elevate Your Impact, March 5th, RJ Vega will be doing Build and Maintain a Culture of Accountability. So check those out, see our catalog. There's also, so in that catalog, there are registration links for anything that's in Q1. Also, if you go to the HR intranet, you can find our calendar, which shows everything month by month. And then the last thing is we'd like your feedback. So Beth, if you'll move on to the final slide, that gives you a QR code so that you can give us your feedback. I'm also going to pop a link into chat for this. So if you'd rather just click the link and let us know your feedback. This is anonymous feedback. We just always want to know how we're doing. So give us a quick take a quick minute and give us your feedback. Let us know if there is a topic that's not on our calendar this year that you would like us to cover in HR Insights. And that's it from me.
I was going to say, I know we're at time.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I know we're at time, but we can hang out.
Put them in. If we didn't answer something that you wanted answered today, please feel free to reach out to us. You can shoot us an email at risk or Teams us, whatever works. We're here to help. We're here to answer your questions.
Thank you, team. We appreciate your expertise, and thanks for everyone who joined.
Thanks, Christy. I don't see anything coming in. So we just did such a great job answering all the questions.
Yeah, so I think I'll go ahead and end the event since we don't have any questions coming in. If anyone is hanging on to ask some questions, please feel free to use the meeting chat. I think you can still reply to us there in Teams. All right, thanks everyone.
Or you're hanging on to see what other people ask. Sometimes I do that.